guess I will call the meeting of the Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative Advisory Committee to order. All right, so I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
So moved.
Seconded.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, I don't see anyone for public appearances for non-agenda items. There's nobody online for that. So I guess we'll skip ahead, and it looks like the only thing on the agenda for this evening is discussion of the Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative annual report. So take it away.
And I'm going to grab the slides here, Scott. I think. Oh, we just did, but I've got your changes. Do you have additional ones? Okay, those are changed. Okay, I'm going to, here we go.
All right. So here is the Healthy Neighborhood Initiative annual report, and this is for 2021 through 2023. So today we're just gonna, let me go back here. Today we're just gonna do a brief overview of the Healthy Neighborhood Initiative, and then just kind of take a look at each of the action items and see where we're at with progress for those. So just an overview, 2017 to 2018, staff developed the Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative Strategic Plan with the Legacy Community Alliance. And then in 2019, Council adopted the plan. Healthy Neighborhood Initiative is defined as a strategic, interdepartmental, comprehensive, and integrated approach to address specific issues specific to Fitchburg neighborhoods. And then here is a map looking at all 4 of the priority neighborhoods. And then just to note, Southdale was added as a priority neighborhood in 2022. And healthy neighborhoods are equitable in access to opportunities, diverse in land use, housing stock, and people, stable and sustainable, and provide social, economic, and environmental benefits to those who live in them. So in the strategic plan, there are pillars that are identified to kind of define what a healthy neighborhood is. So that's education, life skills, care, mobility, healthy lifestyles, and healthy landscapes. And from those pillars, there were action items identified, and those can be sort of put into 3 different categories: promotion, marketing the initiative to stakeholders and identifying sustaining financial resources; people, creating partnerships and relationships; human resources to undertake initiative work; and places, which are the physical locations that we are implementing the work. So the first category, promotion. So our grant program, $245,130 has been awarded to nonprofit partners working to provide programs, services, and resources in those neighborhoods. And these are all of the organizations that have been funded between 2021 and 2023 within the community. Looking at 2021, $63,000 was awarded, with $81,000 available and a request of $173,428. And then the chart shows the different organizations that were funded and the amounts awarded for those. 2022, $95,630 was awarded, with funding availability of about $98,000, and all funding requests were awarded. So all of these applications were awarded this year. For For 2023, $86,045 were awarded. 9 applications were submitted with a request of $124,700, and we awarded about 86,000 of those.
Before we go there, I guess I want to just take a breather if there's any questions. Sorry. Sorry about that. Before Kaylee goes on to our next section, were there any specific questions related to the grant program?
Well, I have a general question about maybe next time we can get a little bit more information on what outcomes the 2021 and 2022 grant participants were able to achieve, as far as the Healthy Neighborhoods initiative gave them the money, but then what was the outcome? What were some of the measurable success criteria? That would be great.
Yes, I'll take a note. Yes, we can pull that information together. And you also had a good idea of perhaps bringing forward some of this year's grantees to come and talk about their current programs. So, noted.
All right. So moving on to the next category, we have people and looking at our Neighborhood Navigator program. So we have 2 navigators as part-time city staff since 2019, and they serve the Leopold Early Childhood Zone and the surrounding community of North Fish Hatchery Road. And they facilitate program, service, and resource awareness and execution, and this program is funded by Dane County Department of Human Services. And on the right side, there's a graph showing the increase in funding from 2021 to 2023. The goals for the Neighborhood Navigators are to foster improved community outreach and provide connection to services and resources specific to the Leopold Early Childhood Zone. And these are specific to families who are either pregnant or have children under the age of 4. And the graphic on the side shows kind of how the navigators are connecting these families to this program and where it goes from there with the home visiting and the different resources that they can potentially be connected to from there. All right, and this is pulled from a flyer for the Leopold Early Childhood Zone. Through the home visiting, they can be connected to integrated services and community resources through the Childhood Zone program. And that includes education and employment, housing, assistance, counseling, and other resources, and then specific to the community, diapers and other child needs, child care, transportation, and other things supporting the family in that way. And this is a chart of the Early Childhood Zone program. Down at the bottom there's an arrow pointing towards where the Fitchburg Neighborhood Navigators kind of fall in this lineup, and they are specifically in the role of outreach and coordination, and that's within the Leopold Early Childhood Zone. All right.
Okay. Maybe we'll just take a pause there and see if there's any questions right here about the Neighborhood Navigator program.
Well, I know, Ari, you had mentioned bringing in these navigators to potentially give us a little bit of information about what their interactions have been like, how their outreach has affected the community from their perspective, and to give kind of some feedback about things that are appreciated about the program as it exists and ways that it can be modified to better serve the community. So I think that's definitely something that should be looked at, because without that feedback, we really don't know how well the navigators are being able to actually serve the neighborhoods.
Do we have any evidence that there's more need? I mean, I'm guessing there is more need than we can provide, but is there evidence that people are asking for services that we can't, or that the neighborhood navigators can't provide, or that like another neighborhood navigator would be able to like help with? Or is there any reason to think that expanding this program would be a good idea?
Well, I think I want, so the neighborhood navigators, they don't provide any services. Their goal is to connect people to the existing services. How we track them is how many people they refer each month is how we're measuring, how it's measured. And so we track that by the number of interactions and the number of people referred. So it's going to be difficult, what I'm trying to say, it's going to be difficult for the navigators to have a good handle on the scope of the need, given their position. Does that kind of make sense? Under the Dane County contract, they are contracted to be that connection to help people navigate to those services. They don't actually do any placement in the services. They work with the agencies in order to place for services. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. I have a couple of follow-up questions. So you mentioned that you do track how many people the navigators refer.
Yep.
And the number of interactions that they have. Is that data that we could at some point see?
Of course. Yep.
Great. And then you mentioned that these neighborhood navigators work with people who are pregnant and people who have children under the age of 4 years old. And I'm wondering if, I guess my question along the lines of expanding the program was along the lines of, are there people who don't fit into that criteria who could also benefit from services? So I'm still curious, even despite your answer, I'm still curious to know if there would be any reason to consider having a neighborhood navigator for people who are experiencing housing insecurity or food insecurity, who maybe don't have a kid under 4 years old.
Yeah. Oh, exactly right. So the neighborhood navigators will not solely work with families that have children under 4. Anybody that has a need, they will try to connect them to that need. They're not limiting. The Dane County program, the funding program that we're under, our contract, the city has a contract with Dane County, and it's part of, if you want to pop back, it's part of the early childhood zone. So that's the core of this funding, and that we need to meet those requirements of that funding contract. That said, of course, the neighborhood navigators will assist anyone in the neighborhood, or anyone to help to find those resources. But we can get you, I'd be happy to, I'm sure the navigators would be happy to come in and talk a little bit more about their day-to-day work. Are there any other questions?
All right. All right, and then the third category here is places, specifically looking at the hub. So project goal for that is to create a space that is available 7 days a week, year-round, and provides something for everyone, including children, teens, young professionals, families, and seniors, and to create a space that meets the needs of the current and future neighborhood residents, as well as the needs of the broader Fitchburg community, and attracting visitors. And then this is a concept plan showing Hub Phase 1 and Hub Phase 2. Current status for Hub Phase 1, December 2022, the Planning Commission approved the conditional use and architectural design review. Construction documents are near completion, and staff is working to resolve existing easements, and are projected to start construction spring 2024. For Hub Phase 2, in the mayor's proposed CIP, it is delayed to 2029 to 2030. All right, and then just a few site plans here. All right, and then looking at the Verona Road West Teen Center, it's an indoor space to house learning, recreation, culture, resources, and a sociable neighborhood gathering. A majority of the space will be devoted to teens and their parents or guardians, teens being ages 13 to 20. The facility should be adjacent to or nearby public park space or outdoor recreational amenities. Current status for the teen center, in the feasibility study RFP, it was released and the proposal was submitted by EQT by Design and Team. The mayor, EQT, and staff met on May 31st to finalize the next steps in contracting, and the mayor directed staff to proceed to contract with Part C of the RFP. All right, and did you want to?
Yeah, we'll take a break there. Is there any questions or comments specifically about the hub or the teen center?
I have a question. Deanna?
Of course. Go ahead, Randy.
Yes, can you speak to the easement issue regarding the hub and I guess without going into real specifics, or can you speak to what you can tell us and the public as to
Sure.
where it stands at this point?
Yeah, there are a couple of private utility easements on the site. And then there is an older parking and access easement on the site that we're working with the previous landowner to at least remove that parking easement before we start construction. It's more of a kind of a cleanup thing, so we're working through it. I guess that's about all I know.
Can you speak to the stormwater easement issue? I believe it's an easement issue for the stormwater.
Right. There's a stormwater line that runs through the site, not actually, that is a private stormwater line that's actually not in an easement. And that is somehow going to have to be addressed to maintain the neighboring property owner's stormwater removal and still work with the development of the hub. So I'm honestly not quite sure how it's all going to get resolved at this point.
Very good, thank you.
Sure.
I'm super curious about the construction. It feels like delay. I'm not sure. I thought that it was going to get done sooner, or at least break ground sooner. Would the construction price, like, do we anticipate construction prices to be the same in spring of 2024 as far as what we originally got estimations for?
We probably couldn't assume that prices will stay the same a year later, but it's not possible to move ahead until the easements get resolved. So the city administration is aware of the challenges, and we're just going to have to kind of work through the budgeting issues. I don't have a good answer on that.
And what did you mean when you said the construction documents are near completion? They're not fully complete?
Yes. I mean, they're mostly complete, but we haven't resolved the final easement issues and where that stormwater line is going to end up going, how the existing water lines are going to end up looking. So there's finalization in the construction documents once the easements are resolved, is how I would say it.
All right, and then, so in the original HNI strategic plan, there was some data pulled together as a demographic profile of all the priority neighborhoods, and we did some updating of that data. So just some highlights of what that showed. The total percentage poverty has decreased in 3 of the neighborhoods by over 20% in the last approximately 10 years. Many of the variables that we looked at have improved in the last decade across all of the neighborhoods. And then specifically looking at Verona Road West neighborhood, so one section of the neighborhood, the median income increased by over 200% since 2000. Other sections of this neighborhood were more stagnant and had greater income than other neighborhoods. There's an increase in children under the age of 18, and that was the only decline in the variables from 2010. And then North Fish Hatchery Road neighborhood, the median income was stagnant since 2000. And in the South neighborhood specifically, there was a significant increase of segregation, mobility, and limited English proficiency.
I have a quick question on that data. It's from, so since 2000 up to current? When was the last data, I guess, that you had for those?
Yeah, so the last data is from the 2010 census and then pulled from the CARP-C Geography of Opportunity and then American Community Survey from 2007 to 2011. So most of the data that we are referring to is from the ACS, and that's from 2007 to 2011, but it is being compared to some data from 2000, just to kind of show that progression from then.
Sure. Yeah, the only reason I ask is, looking at the data of at least the top line there, right? Percent of poverty has decreased. I guess the range of dates of the data there would probably tell a pretty telling story. There's been a lot of upheaval in the last 3 to 5 years, right? When it comes to household income, when it comes to poverty levels in communities, particularly with the child tax credit situation with families with children. So I just was kind of curious where that data, like what date range that data includes, to see if that might be part of the reason why the percent of poverty has dropped, because 20% is a significant number in that community.
Yeah, so from the original report, it came from the American Community Survey for 2011. And then Kaylee is using data from 19, or is this 21?
Well, Verona Road was 2019 because that was the latest data available, but the rest of the neighborhoods are from 2021.
Okay, that's good to know. So it might include a small amount near the end there for some of the other neighborhoods of more recent changes or external factors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the 2021 data might kind of not capture everything with the COVID changes, but that's the most recent data that we can get our hands on right now.
Okay, that makes sense. It often takes a few years to get that data in a consolidated form, so, thank you.
Is there a way that we can look at the data that you're looking at? I mean, not now, but, sent out in an email or something.
Her chart, you mean?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that, because I'm super curious about, North Fish Hatchery Road where I represent, and then this southern part of that neighborhood had increases in segregation and mobility issues. So I'm curious about all that.
Yeah. I think it's probably in the last page of the report, you should be able to see that whole data table that she's referencing. But we're happy to send out the data in an Excel spreadsheet too.
Does that mean that we should, for the, looking forward with this committee, would that mean that we should look at different healthy neighborhoods? Or what impact does that data have on what our committee should be focused on?
That's a very good question. I guess specifically that data right now was being used to kind of look at and inform decisions about the teen center and probably the hub as well. I think this is just kind of more so to show the progression from when this information was last collected, because 10 years is a big difference and we've had a lot of, changes going on since then. So, that would be the next question I think to work on.
While I think that there's been, from what I can see, while I think there's been some improvements in some of the priority neighborhood areas, I think they continue to be the most neediest neighborhoods in the city of Fitchburg, right? I don't think that has necessarily shifted. I think it's a good question, and we could relook at the entire city from these data lens. My thinking is that they would remain our priority neighborhoods.
Can I ask a question about the Southdale data? Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if I'm reading this incorrectly, but some of the data is some of the numbers are a little shocking to me, and I don't know. For example, limited English proficiency. It looks like Southdale listed as 0%. A lot of the numbers for Southdale specifically, just because that's where I live, look hard to believe. And so the 0% is absolutely, of course, it is some kind of an error. But I'm not sure about the rest of those numbers.
We can certainly go back in and check. We work off of what we get from the census ACS data. Does that capture everything that's happening in a neighborhood? No. It's one snapshot, but we'll definitely go back in and check. Especially, it's especially challenging in immigrant neighborhoods that census just has a hard time capturing. But we'll go back and take a look at that number again.
Yeah, I would say for that number, I mean, it would have to be over 50%, I would think. And now maybe I'm not, that's obviously an estimate, but it would be pretty strongly, significantly off.
Okay. Sure, we'll go back in and take a look. It has to do with the boundaries of the census geography too. Yeah, so we'll definitely take a look.
Okay, any other questions?
As far as promotion go, I'm looking back at the action items for the Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative Committee. We talked about people, we talked about places, not really programs, but what's going on for promotion? Can you remind me?
So I guess what we looked at was the promotion of people, fill me in.
So under promotion, we were looking at the grant program for right now. And just kind of how those funds have been allocated and used.
So going forward for, the next number of years, are we saying that these action items are staying the same? Are there new action items? What's the process? I don't really understand the process of we were a pilot program, I think, and then we got renewed, maybe? I'm not sure. Can you help me understand a little bit about what happened? Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, I will do the best that I can here. So in 2019, I guess in 17, 18, the H&I program was put together, the H&I initiative. Council adopted the H&I strategic plan in 19. From there, we've been operating under the strategic plan, and it was a priority. It was a pilot study. We have not, as staff, we have not had funds, or council has not directed us to update the plan again, which they certainly could. So one approach could be that council says, we need to do an update of the H&I strategic initiative, update the 5-year plan. They have not given us the go-ahead to do that at this time. And so until they do give us that go-ahead to do the update, we will continue as just functioning under this rubric, under this framework.
I'd be curious about other people's perspective. Does anyone feel like that's something that we should kind of ask for? Do we want different priorities for our committee? What are anyone's thoughts, or does anyone have thoughts on that?
Well, I'll just say I had a quick chat actually just this evening as I was coming in with Mayor Arata, and she and I think there's a few other people who've we're going to talk about that later this month. And I think one of the things that I would like to do for the next meeting that we do is to set some agenda items to discuss what our recommendation to the council will be as far as what do we see going forward? What should this program be or become as they put together their budget considerations and try to determine where do we go from here, because this initiative was funded through this year. So now's the time to take those recommendations, have those discussions, and put something forth so that way it can be included in the new budget, and we can hopefully see some changes that we feel are necessary, and update things as the data tells us, or as our experiences tell us.
The meeting, is that going to be like to actually discuss next steps, or is it to like discuss that we need an action plan? Now let's go do it. As in, would it benefit us to get feedback from, for example, the neighborhood navigators before your meeting later this month, as far as what they're seeing for at least the neighborhood that I represent, North Fishhatchery Road, the needs of residents there, or other individuals who would know what some of these priority neighborhoods need, what programs they need, what initiatives we should be focused on. Would it benefit us to get some of that information before your meeting later this month, or does it make sense to just wait for our next meeting?
I would certainly welcome any additional information. I think it would be helpful to know that, right? There are a few of us on this committee that have been here for multiple cycles, but others are just starting, or this is like my 5th meeting. This annual report has been very enlightening to be able to see some of the past data, but I think also getting input would be good. I'm not sure how we would go about that in an official capacity without scheduling another meeting this month, maybe, to bring people in to speak with us, because the alternative would be to just simply reach out to them as we can through staff and whatnot, which I think might be possible, but everyone's schedule is busy, so I don't know if that would be something we could do in the next couple of weeks.
You certainly can, you certainly individually could reach out. But I guess in terms of making decisions as a committee and making recommendations as a committee, it would be better to gather that information as a whole and then bring it to you as a committee, just to keep it very open records, open meeting kind of thing. Do you have a certain date that you have something scheduled later this month to discuss this?
I don't have my calendar up in front of me, and I left my phone at home, but I think it's somewhere around the 20th of July is when this meeting is supposed to happen, so it would hopefully be before then, but.
It is scheduled for the 20th of July, Brian.
Perfect.
Well, just staff-wise, it's probably going to be pretty hard for us to pull a meeting together. What we could do, though, we, with the help of Kaylee, can collect some additional information from the neighborhood navigators, pull together some more detailed information from the neighborhood navigators, what they're seeing in a written form and written report form. We can pull together some more information about the grant outcomes, and hopefully that, and the neighborhood navigator data too. We can pull some more data together for you. That might be helpful. And you are welcome, if you would like to do some individual networking with just kind of on your own, that would be okay. But as a committee, I think it'd be important to keep everything collectively and no discussions between you, if that makes any sense. But we would be happy to pull together some additional information before your July 20th meeting.
I mean, as an example, my guess is that a lot of families are really struggling with, childcare issues and prices of childcare. And I'm not certain that, our committee is really addressing those needs as of now. I think that, for example, maybe the hub in North Fish Hatchery Road and the teen center in Verona Road West, those could in the future be helpful. I was curious to see if we should amend any of our action items in order to address like other needs that anyone else knows of, that like people are seeing. But yeah, I know childcare is a big issue. I know of others, but.
Yeah, I think our next meeting as a committee could definitely include creating a bullet list of priorities that we want the council to consider, taking into account when it comes to funding and amending the initiative itself to address, including, like you said, childcare. And I mean, whether or not, for example, the grant program, it's funded some really great opportunities and efforts, but we've also seen that we have a lot more demand than we have resources. So also taking into consideration that grant program may need to grow in order to address those things as well. And I guess further, whether or not that grant program is the appropriate method to address things that are more systemic, like access to childcare, because relying on a yearly grant can be really difficult for childcare providers or local nonprofits to be able to budget and plan ahead more than that year. So, in that respect, the Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative, as it currently exists, may not be the best way to fund those, but that doesn't mean the Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative program couldn't be amended or, expanded to include some assistance or facilitation of that in the communities.
I'm wondering if one approach here is to request from council funds to do a full update to the the Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative strategic plan. Then we can start to collect, instead of trying to evaluate an individual or change an individual goal or program in the strategic plan, to go ahead and do a full-scale reevaluation of the strategic plan, collect the proper data that you all need in order to make those decisions, and begin to, you bring up a very good point, Ryan. How do we, once we've identified those needs, how are we to best meet those needs, right? Is a grant program the proper thing, the proper tool in our toolkit to meet that issue, right? So this all, you might consider that this is more of a broader rewrite of the strategic, or update to the strategic plan.
I think that maybe we look at the next meeting's agenda to add that as a thing that we, can we do that now? I think that might be premature now.
I mean, we can certainly work on that. You may make requests for the next agenda.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would be something that I would like to talk about in the next agenda, and to come to a firm direction as to what the committee wants to do to bring to the council as far as a recommendation and a request. And perhaps we can make the next meeting more expeditious.
Sure.
Mr. Chair? Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Ryan, I think that's the conversation on the 20th as to how to move forward as well. So it's not to say this committee can't make the recommendations. I think that's what the mayor's objective is for that meeting.
Okay. Excellent.
I can't speak for her, but I believe that's the topic of discussion. So I guess if you can gather any information from the other committee members, and I hope I'm not stepping on any legal issue there, but if you want to gather information or we want to gather information, that's always useful for city staff, in this case, the mayor.
Certainly.
I mean, to that end, another issue that I've heard from constituents is just being able to like pay for basic like hand soap and like dish detergent and just like the everyday, daily. I mean, basically another food pantry is essentially what some of the constituents that I've been talking to, benefit from. But then they don't have transportation to get to a food pantry. So then it's like, okay, so what's the solution there? I don't know, but systemic issue.
Okay, so, I will work with staff to work on the agenda for the next meeting and try to set a date that is, sooner than later. I know that we had discussion earlier in the year about how many meetings a year were budgeted, and I think we have more than enough to host another meeting sooner than later. Obviously, as everybody is available, the summer being as busy as it always is for everyone. So, I think that's going to be a top goal here because I know budget items are underway. Okay, any other discussion of the annual report at all?
I'll just remind the specific number of meetings that we had budgeted, if I recall correctly, is 8. So
Okay.
everyone's aware.
Excellent, and we're only on number 3, so that gives us quite a few more. Not that I'm going to attempt to bring everybody here every 3 weeks to the end of the year or something, but as needed. Okay, is there any additional report from department if we're going to move on from the annual report?
There is no additional report this evening.
Okay, then I guess we move on to announcements. Any announcements? Nope. All right, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, meeting adjourned. Oh, need a vote. I'm sorry. I need a second, right?
Do you have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Aye.
meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.